The cost of IT in business can be staggering. From hardware and software expenses to services like internet and phone, you don't need to spend a fortune on IT to succeed. If your organization spends more than $500 monthly on any service, or you're considering signing a long-term contract, IT Enabled can help you manage your technology and minimize your costs. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation. IT Enabled, we're here to help.
Well, Joe, thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on the podcast. So why don't you tell the viewers your name, who you are, and then let's get into this because it's a long history.
It's a long history. So my name is Joe Morales, and
you said that so much prettier than I would say.
I'm with Casa Morales, and my mother, Juanita Aguilar, is the owner and proprietor. And we've been in business now 52, going on 53 years.
That's fantastic.
Yes, and it's been quite a journey. My younger brother, Hector, there's two of us in the family, and he's 6 years younger than I. He's more involved in the restaurant than I am. I'm more of the public relations and marketing aspect of it. He's more hands-on. And my stepfather, Ambrosio Aguilar, he is my mother's right-hand man. She is the boss and always has been. So,
well, we love Casa Morales. You know, I mean, I was born and raised here, started eating Casa Morales the moment I could probably eat table food. So it's definitely a staple in our home. And I know in so many people's family, they all have great memories and fun times, and we wouldn't be anywhere without Casa Morales in Lufkin.
Yeah. I have an embarrassing confession to make. I'm not about to say that I've never been, but I had not been until last year. We had our, we just get into our routines. We had our little haunts, and I went through Leadership Lufkin, and Jack Ellis, who became a good friend of mine at the program, he said, "You never been to Morales?" And I was like, "No, I don't know how, but I never have." And he's like, "We're going like tomorrow." He's like, "We're going." He's like, "I'm taking you right now." And so he and now I am in love with it. Like it's incredible.
I think that's been one of our biggest challenges is we've never had to market. We've been here from the beginning. We were the first authentic Mexican food restaurant, and so we've just kind of grown with the community, and we've never had to really market ourselves. And I think, the competition has really risen, and, we find ourselves kind of in our little niche. And so we have to do some adjusting because there's a lot of people that have not dined with us. And our community's grown a lot since 1972.
It is. And it's surprising for a town our size. We just assume that everyone has done everything and everyone has been everywhere. But we have... at the zoo, we have people who live in Angelina County who have never been to the zoo before.
That's
like
amazing.
That blows my mind, and so it's wild.
Well, we need to get them out there. We have an amazing zoo. The town our size.
We do, but it's just like me. Like I've been here my whole life, and for whatever reason, I just never put two and two together and hadn't made it out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I've been missing out on this? So.
So let's talk about the history, and because you started in 1972.
Yes. So. Well, I'll give you a little backstory. I think it's important just to get the whole culture of what Casa Morales is, And I'm first generation removed from extreme poverty. On my dad's side, they were migrant farm workers, which it's extreme hardship life. They traveled around the country following the harvest, and it's from dawn to dusk type job, and it's hand picking the harvest, and there's not a lot of money in it, and the living environment it's tough. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and when he returned from the war, that's for whatever reason that's the industry that he really gravitated towards, and brought the whole family with him, and so they migrated around the country. And so it was kind of bouncing around for my father and my uncle, school to school, and whatnot. So it was that culture. And then on my mom's side, she grew up on the King Ranch in South Texas. She was born in Raymondville, and with her father, my grandfather. And but she grew up her first few years in Mexico with her mom, my grandmother. And she was in agriculture. She worked the fields, and So my mother was at the mercy of whomever watched the kids, which there was a bunch of them. They grew up in a single room, no electricity, no water, a mud thatched hut, and bathed in the river kind of thing. And so that was the first few years of her life. And then when my grandfather came and got her and brought her back to Raymondville, and they lived on the ranch. And the ranch manager's wife kind of helped raise her a little bit. And then my grandfather died when she was 14. Mm-hmm. And so she really had no one in the United States, that she could lean on. She was going to go into foster care, and luckily a best friend in her school, her parents ended up bringing her in, and she lived with them until she graduated high school. Mm. And then went on to college at Pan American University, and that's where she met my dad. And they ended up coming to Lufkin through the Manpower federal program, which at that time was training migrant farm workers to pursue higher level labor jobs. And Arthur Temple plugged into that program and went down to South Texas and brought hundreds of families here to Diboll. Okay. And they settled into the housing authority. And that enabled Diboll to pursue it becoming a township. Sure. And really, I attribute it to the seed for the Hispanic culture, the growth here in East Texas and deep East Texas. So we're doing a research project with that. It's called Roots of Resilience. And SFA is partnered with us, Diboll History Center. We're working with them. University of Houston has shown some interest, and Lufkin Creative has given us a micro grant to work on that project. And hopefully the results, the John F. Kennedy Library as well as LBJ are interested in those, what our research comes up with.
Very cool.
And so we're looking at another big grant from the Cook Foundation for that as well. So, and it's going to document that migration, our history in the migrant farm workers, labor and that movement here in East Texas and the culture explosion and whatnot. So when we came to East Texas with that program, I think my father worked with Temple for a couple of years, and they jumped into the restaurant industry. They had no experience in restaurants. My mother, she's always been in the kitchen ever since she was little, probably 6 or 7 years old. I love it. That's just the culture of the Hispanic culture, and my dad, he's a creative. He's always dabbled with food, but he was more of the visionary dreamer, he's always trying new things. And so he was the motivation behind making this happen. My mother is more the analytical. She's, let's keep everything in close and let's just dig in and work hard. So they were a good match when it first started. And our first location was, it was a hotel, or it was a motel. It's at 2 Point.
Okay.
And where I think it's Crawdaddy's is right now.
Right.
So there was a 2-story motel in that little area. And looking at it now, I don't see how it fit. But and I remember there was a big oak tree right in the middle that the hotel wrapped around. Right. And our cafe was in that little corner section of that hotel.
I love that.
Probably sat maybe 25, 30 people. It was just a little cafe.
So was that in the 70s?
This was
into the
72.
72. Okay. Awesome.
I was in diapers. I grew up in that building. I started having memories of that place, before we moved into South First. Okay. So I remember, I had a lot of good memories. Yeah. I remember I'll share some good ones with you. The Tom's truck pulling up to the restaurant. Mm-hmm. They're bringing in chips and candy for the vending machines. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the greatest day ever when they come in.
That's awesome.
And Then I remember the vending machine for cigarettes. They had the
Yeah.
Camel,
Yeah.
the Camel pack of cigarettes. I was amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember running over there and watching people pull that little lever and watching the cigarettes come down. And the other was the dime jukebox.
Oh yeah.
You know, and the music that came out of that jukebox, I think that really left an impression on me as far as the type of music that I grew up with and liked. So
you still have the jukebox in there.
Oh, yes,
it's
we do. It's followed us the whole way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that classic country gold, the trucker music.
Yeah.
We had the old rock and roll type stuff, and then we had the Hispanic Mexican style music, and and at that time we served primarily it was people coming through town, workers that were needing, because it was it's by the day I think type hotel, so we had a lot of people that coming through working, but also local just blue collar workers. People that own shops and automotive shops or tire shops, whatnot, and people around the area that had little mom and pop stuff. So we got to know the community real well and developed a core of clientele, and that just kept growing and growing.
I love that.
I think it was 76 we moved over to South First Street. We bought that location from Iona, and that was a big transition. It was a lot bigger place than we were accustomed to, and it was in a neighborhood, but it was a good move. It enabled us to serve more people, and I think we became an integral part of that little community, that little neighborhood community. And that just exploded our brand at that location. It was already known. Iona was known by a lot of people for the product that she put out. I think she's best known for her frozen Cokes. Okay. And people they'd come in there, and share their stories of Iona and walking from the high school over when it was at Junior High West, and they'd come and order those ice cold Cokes, and they'd share other memories of their favorite dishes. But as we kind of adopted that customer service as well, and we kept growing.
Well, and then you had a second location for a long time, because that was the location I always grew up going to, because it had margaritas.
Yes. So that was 1984. Okay. 1984, we moved out to the Redland location, and we had been wanting to serve margaritas for a time, but being that we were in a neighborhood, that location was not neighborhood retail. We weren't commercial.
Got it.
It had grandfathered in because that location had been a service location dating back into the 20s. I think it was Cherry's grocery store back in forever. Wow. And for a time, that was the last stop before you headed out of town on your way to Houston. And but the neighborhood grew up around it, so we weren't able to get a liquor license at that time. So we found that place out in Redland, and that just added a whole nother feature to what we were offering, and it became its own entity.
It did.
It
was completely different than the one in town.
Right.
It was.
We'd come home from college and everybody was like, we'll meet you in Redland.
Yes.
Yes.
That's where we all met to catch up and
yes, indeed.
visit. And...
it was, it was a place you could let your hair down. Everybody knew everybody, and it was a relaxed atmosphere. No one was in a hurry for anything. And it just, and you could come in as you were. I remember people coming in from the lake, just muddy, sweaty, and it was perfectly fine. It was almost like what do they call those? The beer houses, ice houses.
Like an ice house,
It was almost like an ice house.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe
environment.
that.
Yeah, and then the music. We had great music out there. You can't have good food and good margaritas without good music.
Right.
We've always believed that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the day that it was having to close because of the construction.
Yeah.
It was like everybody went into mourning.
It was terrible.
It's like it cannot go away.
It was terrible, and because that had been a big part of our lives, and
Right.
it was financially, it was a big sting because that was our primary breadwinner out there.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
That was 2019.
19?
Yeah.
Okay.
2019.
And for people who aren't familiar, so that was the road construction that was coming through.
That's right.
Yeah, Highway 59 North.
Right.
They bought it in the state bought it in 2019, and but just now we're seeing the construction
Gotcha.
part of it. And there was no way around it. We tried, and I mean, the Winstons had to sell out. If the
That's
Winstons had to sell out, we were
You were going to sell.
we're selling. So
Yeah. But let's back up, because before all of that, in the early 2000s, you had a fire.
yes, and man, that was a trying time as well. That was 2007. We had a kitchen fire in the location downtown. We call it downtown on First Street, and it was a complete loss. And it was an early morning fire, and by noon the restaurant was completely gone. Mm-hmm. And man, we didn't know what we were going to do, because that had always been the anchor to everything. That was our headquarters. All our financials were in there. We had a ton of keepsakes and pictures and everything. I mean, our whole life, because when you're in the restaurant industry, it's not like that. That's your life and that's your home. At home, and people would get tickled. They'd come over and they'd look in our house, and they'd look in our fridge, and there's no food.
It's all at the restaurant.
It's all at the restaurant. And there's not a whole lot of keepsakes at home, because we're never there.
Yeah.
You're always at the restaurant. Mm-hmm. And a home's just like a place to sleep. It's changed somewhat over the years as we've been able to pull back and spend more time at the house, but we lost it all. Mm-hmm. And had to start over. And that was difficult for my mother, because from where she came from to where she was at that time, it was a completely different world, and she built it from nothing.
That's tough.
And to be as successful as she was, luckily we had the restaurant out on 59. That was our lifeboat, and that maintained us until we were able to rebuild and kind of keep going. And our customers were just fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
but they've been with us since day one. We've served 4 generations of people, our customers, their family. We've watched children being born,
Mm-hmm.
to marry, to have kids of their own, and their kids have kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing growing up in the food industry and have customers that loyal and that have become family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So you built back from that,
Mm-hmm.
and have built up this location now. So tell us about the new beginnings. What's happening now?
So, man, right now is a difficult time in the restaurant industry.
It is.
The economy, it's a tough economy. And, the competition's tough. I think, we're all competing for the same dollars. Mm-hmm. So you have to be creative. At the same time, the labor part of this economy is tough too. There's a lot of jobs out there, but the labor force is lacking. And, some people would say, well, there's plenty of jobs in the restaurant industry. I don't see why people don't plug in. Well, it's a different animal to work in the restaurant industry. Yeah. There's a certain skill you have to have, and it's a people skill. Mm-hmm. And it's not easily learned. It's almost, you have to kind of show up with it, and then you kind of mold it to what your brand is. And a lot of times that just doesn't show up at your door.
Well, you have the best, because you have Angel.
We've been lucky. We've been lucky. All of our employees have been with us over 38 years.
That's incredible.
We have some new people that have joined us within the last couple of years, but the core mm-hmm. of our employees have been with us over 38 years. But that's a scary part. Is what's going to happen
That's right.
when they retire.
Right.
It's bad, and that you go way too much when you just walk in and the food is brought to you, and
they
your
just
drink
know
is
what you
brought
want.
to you.
Right.
They never ask. It's
Right.
just done.
Yes. But Angel's amazing. He's
I
a
love Angel.
different bird, man.
Yeah.
We had a family that moved to Michigan like 8 years ago, And they came back in the restaurant about 5 months ago, and they walked in, and he immediately knew what they wanted and who they were and what they ordered.
Yeah.
And they had it ready for him, and they were like, oh, my God.
He's the best.
That's awesome.
He takes great care of it. But like you said, you've got a great staff.
Yes.
You know, I don't know everybody else by name. Angel's just who I have known since I was a little girl.
Yeah.
Taking care of us. So.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't always get right, especially when it gets busy. You know, sometimes we make mistakes, but that's the nature of it.
It just happens.
Yeah. And you just, you know, you keep going, keep plugging in and going forward. You know, one of the things, and you were mentioning, you know, in this, you know, what are we doing now as far as going forward? And, you know, part of my passion is being in the community. I've always been involved in community. And I think we need to do more of that, more of giving back. And so we're trying to plug into as many things as we can with the chamber and with other nonprofits, you know, as much as, you know, my body and energy can handle it. And which also I think it's a two-way street. You know, we get great pleasure in helping others and you know, and in turn, you know, they'll come visit us, you know, and they'll thank us, and they'll become customers, you know, in their own way. But you know, we add another, you know, member to the family, and we have a great community. You know, it's. I think one of the things that I thought about is I was thinking what we were going to talk about. I wanted to share this is, you know, being that, you know, I am one generation removed from extreme poverty, and I think about that now in the back half of my life, and often think, all right, what have I done with that opportunity, and could I have done more? Well, the back half is there something about age? You know, wisdom comes with age, and if I knew now what I knew at 25, what I know now, things would have been completely different. But it's just not designed that way. But I want to make sure I give back to younger people the wisdom that I've gained, especially over the past 20 years, so that they can have a better start and also understand the cycle of poverty, because we have a lot of poverty in this community. And sometimes it takes generations to climb out of. It's not an easy fix or something you can throw money at.
Right.
You know, and so it takes education and not just academically, but you know, how to handle yourself as a person. Life skills. You know, and so I think that's where we are. And also, I love the arts. You know, I'm a musician, but I love all art, and so we're trying to really plug into the art community here well, and try and lift that up, because I think we're going through an art renaissance.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
the things that are happening here, especially for a town this size.
Yes,
that's great. Well, you know, the great part is if you love Casa Morales, you can go and you can purchase their salsa, which is the best. I like it when it's, Brent will say it's good today. It's got more pepper in it. But you can get their salsa, and you also do catering. So people need catering.
We do catering. The salsa, you can also buy it online. So that the online store is at tamalejoes.com.
Okay.
And so I carried that back from when I was in Nashville. And so I just didn't have the energy of building another, you know, shop. So I just kept that one for now. Cool. Eventually, I think I'll blend the two brands together. Yeah, we're shipping all over the country. So that salsa in a jar is it's a special thing. It's an international award-winning salsa. We came in third. I think we were beat at that time by Pace and I think one other big boy.
No thanks. I'll take Morales salsa any day.
You talk with whatever judges picked Pace over your guys' salsa.
I know,
who did
man.
That? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a whole different world over there in those competitions. But I love going to them.
Yeah, I bet that's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun.
That's a whole nother culture. But,
awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm thrilled to know the history and your mama's history, and you know she's a little spitfire in that restaurant. So
she is.
You know when she walks in to shape up,
she's boss.
Yeah,
you know, tell. Yeah, you know, and when I'm in the kitchen sometimes, and she shows up, and she starts barking orders from she's what 5.
You better start cutting something or cleaning something.
4'11", you know, and oh yeah.
That's awesome.
She's on fire.
I love it.
Yeah.
Go eat at Casa Morales. It's the best.
Oh yeah,
It
absolutely
is incredible.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time. We enjoyed having
Thanks
you
for
here on
having
the
me.
podcast.
Thanks
yeah.
for having me.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
enjoyed
That's
this.
what we love about this is getting to have people tell those type of stories,
Yeah.
and those origin stories are always so neat and so fascinating. So thank you so much for doing that.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thanks.
Appreciate you. And thank you so much again for listening to the podcast this week. We appreciate your support. If you'll do us a favor and share this episode of the podcast with someone who you think will find this story interesting. We love telling these generational family stories about the community that we all live in. So share that with somebody that you think will find that interesting. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.